Hey there. Happy astrological new year to you. Now, this video that follows, I made a couple of changes whilst I was recording midway. So when I first recorded this, I anticipated that I was going to do the forecast straight after. As it turned out, each of the videos I did for each sign of the zodiac, they just got longer and longer and longer. And they were like 25 minutes or half an hour. And I thought if I put them all in one, it's going to be well over 6 hours and YouTube won't like that. So any reference to the videos that follow, please ignore those and just know that all 12 of the Happy New Year forecasts are already posted on YouTube right now, and you can absolutely go and see them. However, I really do recommend that you watch this. This is a really fabulous video, in my opinion, where I talk about some of the biggest times, some of the the most pervasive patterns in this year ahead. And I think it would be really helpful to I guess find a little bit of peace or direction in these times. The zodiac ascendant forecasts absolutely are very helpful because they're really tailored to your view of the world. However, I think it's very helpful to have a very sort of big picture view that also goes really in deep. So I'm going to leave that invitation with you. Hope you enjoy this and maybe catch you another time. Lots of love. Welcome. My name's Louise. If you've come back, having been here before, thank you for trusting me with this again. As ever, I'm going to bring up my trusty slides. I don't do anything without slides. And the reason for that, I think I'm a channel. I'm an astrologer, sure, but I'm also a channel. And when I look at a chart, I feel like I get pulled in, like every chart is a portal. That's how I see it. And so I look at these portals and I start off with the astrological reading, but I soon get kind of pulled in and then more stuff comes. And so one of the reasons why I have details is to keep me on track, because I've got Mercury in Sagittarius, by the way, so I do like to tell a bit of a story. So it's to keep me on track, but it's also just to give me a little word, and sometimes just that word is the thing that helps me bring up all the meanings that I do. So anyway, what I'm going to do then is build a picture for you for this year ahead, and I'm going to start with the eclipses and nodes. Because they're really showing us how we're changing focus for this year ahead. So this is interesting. As we come into this new year, we have got the North Node around about 8 degrees in the sign of Pisces. And then by the end of this new year, i.e. the Equinox in March in 2027, the North Node is going to be around about 19 degrees in the sign of Aquarius. So it's really backing through Pisces and heading into Aquarius. And it's heading into Aquarius on the 26th of July this year. And, the North Node, wherever he goes, the South Node is always in opposition. So the South Node is going through the first 9 degrees of Virgo, and then it's backing into the sign of Leo. So if you've got anything really strong in your chart, like in the sign of Aquarius in particular, or Leo, you're going to be feeling a lot of change in this year ahead, because the nodes, they come into the sign of Aquarius every 18.9 years or so. So it's an unusual thing. This is a really big deal if you've got a really strong Aquarian energy. Similarly, if you've got a strong Leo energy, the South Node is going to be really picking that up. If you've actually got your North Node in Aquarius or Leo, this is going to be a pretty big year for you. So just from that perspective, that's going to be creating some change. Now, as the North Node heads out of Pisces, where it's been since the beginning, I think, of 2025, if off the top of my head. Yeah, that makes sense. It's been encouraging us to be a lot more soulful, to revere the story and the circle and the development and the journey rather than the hard facts. It's been really encouraging us to develop the context of things, to know things at a much deeper level, and to allow some of our certainty about life to dissolve. Really this nodal pattern that we're currently in is about dissolving our idea of what's real and what's not real. And I know that probably sounds a bit scary, but we've been hyper focused on everything being real and certain and boxed and logical and practical and this, that, and the other. And it's really taken the magic out of our life. And so, this particular nodal pattern that we're already almost through has been increasing the magic. But of course, it comes with a cost. It comes with a consequence. Anytime we open ourselves up to something that doesn't feel real, maybe feels new, there's going to be a little bit of fear factor involved, especially seeing as Western life in particular. And I'm guessing you're a Western person if I'm talking to you, because I don't think many people from other cultures would tune into me. They would tune into people that they understand the context of a lot more. I speak obviously a lot more to Western people. The Western lifestyle is really premised on facts, figures, rationality. Rationality has been king for a long time. So this has been quite a disturbing North Node nodal pattern. Also, because we've had Saturn going along with it, so Saturn in the North Node, and also Neptune has been in the sign of Pisces too. So this has been a time of really strong unconscious change. When it goes into the sign of Aquarius, there's going to be a big shift. And that shift, as it goes into Aquarius, is going to be opening us up to the idea that we're all connected to a vision, and that like Pisces, it's been teaching us that we are all connected actually at a soul level. Now we're going to feel that sense of connection as brother and sister and maybe want to act on that a little bit. I think people are going to be coming together in groups a lot more. People are going to be working together on similar projects to try and create something really good and beautiful. It's not very selfish. In fact, it's almost devoid of self. The sign of Aquarius really does try to keep everything as equal as possible. And yet Aquarius also carries within it the seed of independence and freedom and liberty. And so even though it's quite, it has an energy of leveling the playing field, and it's also, I think, has the energy of frequency and technology. I really think Uranus, one of the rulers of Aquarius, really brings in the idea of the internet and the web and all that. In fact, looking at this, that almost looks like part of the web, sort of disassembled. Like if you were to mix the Pisces and the Aquarius energy together, you might sort of fashion a web together. But anyway, I digress. I do think things technologically are going to spring up so much more during this time, but also the idea of community. And with the South Node in Leo, the energy is really moving us away from the idea of superiority based on celebrity and superiority based on glamour and wealth and just being the person in charge at the top. Now, I think there's a midpoint between these. I always do think there is a midpoint between where the South Node is and where the North Node is, because I think there's a real danger when we fall heavily in one sign and forget the other sign. We end up going into the shadow, I think. When the expression of a sign is so defined, I think it almost goes into its shadow rather than staying really pure. I think we always need a little counterweight on the other side, the South Node. One of the things I'm curious about, maybe curious isn't the word, cautious about, is the fact that the North Node is going to be heading back through Aquarius. And at the end of 2027, November 2027, it's going to make a conjunction with Pluto. Now, this is going to be a big deal. It doesn't happen that often, obviously, because the North Node takes 18.9 roughly. It takes a long time, between 18 and 19 years, to do a whole circuit. So, this isn't a common thing, but having Pluto and the North Node touching base together in a sign is really going to overemphasize that sign. Also, the last time Jupiter and Saturn got together, they're called great conjunctions. They come together every 20 years. The last time they came together was at 0 degrees in the sign of Aquarius, really setting in a new 20-year period celebrating the Aquarian energy, but also the fact that Pluto is in a trine with Uranus, and Uranus is changing signs and going into another air sign. So it's going to be metabolized in a really, really quick way. I just think the Aquarian energy is going to be very dominant. And one of the shadow sides of the Aquarian energy is, I guess, that it disidentifies. I really think Leo is quite biological and really based on our ego. We really see our ego, don't we, with the sort of sovereign king, put the crown on the head of the Leo. And by contrast, Aquarians, when we get into the shadow side of the Aquarian, I think it brings out the numbers game, reduces humanity to a number. So I'd like to think that there's a way for us to help each other without reducing us to numbers. And how can we celebrate sovereignty without it getting out of hand? There must be a midpoint, and that's what I'm hoping myself to explore. I do think the rise of renegade, outsiders, way showers, libertarianism is going to really shoot sky high because, when you look at the political climate, it just appears that there is a battle between one side and another, and it's just such a dominant energy. And of course, for most people, we might not fully identify with one idea. I rarely just think, oh yeah, that really ticks every single box of everything that I'm worried about. Most of us have like different thoughts and feelings. And so I really think as the North Node comes into Aquarius, especially if things get very technological and the technology and AI run ahead of us, which I'm sure it will do, if it hasn't already, I suspect there will be people that just absolutely break free of the modern world and start to live quite differently. I may even be with them. So I do see that that's going to be an energy coming on. Now, we've got, in every year, we have at least 4 eclipses. And in this particular year, we're going to have 2 eclipses this August. And so we're going to have a very, very powerful, I love this one, a very powerful solar eclipse on the 12th of August at 20 degrees Leo. If you've got that on your astrological birth chart bingo card, like if you look at your birth chart and you've got something around 20 degrees, your number's being called, it's a pretty big one, and very helpful, very powerful. We've got a lunar eclipse on the 28th at 4 degrees in the sign of Pisces. If you've got something around there, that's also going to be, catching your attention. And then the next 2 eclipses will be both taking place in February of next year, 2027, really, at the end of our year ahead. And they're going to be at 17 Aquarius and then 2 degrees in the sign of Virgo. So all the eclipses are falling in this space. So wherever this space exists within your birth chart, it is a space of great learning and great reorientation. I think we are course correcting. The North Node is always showing us, in fact, the North Node, if you're looking at the true North Node, it appears to be going direct, indirect, like it's going, direct, retrograde, direct, retrograde. Because it's always moving. It's not set in stone. A lot of people use the mean North Node, which doesn't mean it's mean and nasty, but it's average. But the North Node actually isn't an actual thing. It's a point, it's a calculation. However, this calculation is helping us course correct. It's like a karmic significator. It's showing us where we need to make little adjustments here and there to be on track. So I think our relationship to technology and our relationship to being ruled in we've been in from my perspective, it looks like we've been in a corporatocracy for a long time. I think we're coming into a technocracy for sure. A whatcracy. It could be even, it's like a massive network, the Internet of Things is what people talk about. So let's see what happens. So that's definitely something to pay attention to. So when it comes to your forecast, have a look at where this is sitting in your chart according to your ascendant. Now, Jupiter's going to be showing us how we expand into our well-being. Now, obviously, Jupiter isn't 3 places at the same time. However, this is marking where he is at the start of the year. Then he kind of rushes up into Leo. And then on the 12th of December this year, he's going to start to go retrograde. So he gets to 27 degrees in the sign of Leo. And then when we come to the end of this year, he's at 17 degrees Leo. The reason I've marked this point here, 4 degrees Leo, is because later on this year, in July, I think July the 23rd, but it's actually a period of time, there's going to be an alignment between 4 planets, and it's really strong. It doesn't happen very often. I have found some other times it's happened, but not exactly or as cleanly or as perfectly as it's happening right now. And so I've put this in just as a marker. But essentially, if you're looking at your birth chart, and obviously I will be giving you a forecast and telling you what's going on from your ascendant perspective, you know, going from Cancer, Jupiter is exalted in the sign of Cancer, and he's really bringing back this feeling of family. Right now, he's just gone direct again. So as we go into this new year, he's very family oriented, very much about connecting to people that are important to you. It's like this pride, this beautiful sense of really wanting to be in communion with people, you know, the most important people. Now, Jupiter is also very religious in the sign of Cancer. He's naturally quite faithful, and you know, Cancer is very tender but very, very faithful. And so the energy of faith, I think, is making a huge comeback. And obviously that can be in any different faith of pick your favorite one. But I would say until he goes into the sign of Leo, and that's happening. I didn't write down the date, funnily enough. It's happening. Hang on, let me just find the exact date. 1 second. So Jupiter's going into Cancer on the into Leo on the 29th of June. So right the way through July, he's going to be moving quite fast through the sign of Leo. So anywhere from 15 degrees Cancer to 27 degrees Leo is going to have Jupiter expanding and creating a sense of well-being, and also a feeling of a rush, a feeling of growth. So wherever this sits in your chart, again, this is a part of your chart that you're going to be expanding in. So for instance, in my chart, he's going to be, it literally goes from the start of my 9th house right the way up to my midheaven. So it's just going to be really in my 9th house the whole time. Wherever he is, he's going to be influencing. So for instance, if it's happening for you in your 9th house, it's going to be encouraging you to study, to share your ideas, to teach. That teaching energy is going to get really, really strong. And it's also a time when you want to sort of travel. Now, Jupiter really is known for traveling. And so him going into the sign that's ruled by the sun, it really wouldn't surprise me if we have a really hot summer or something like that, or that there's this energy of travel, wanting to go somewhere really hot and, you know, really enjoy the company of people from cultures where things are really, really hot. You know, Jupiter's going to get heated up. It's interesting, actually, because where I've been living, we've had a very, very wet time of it. And of course, like I said, Jupiter, he increases things, you know, he expands on things. So we're coming out of him being in a water sign and coming into literally the sign of the sun, which is Leo. So yeah, wherever he is, he's helping you feel good about yourself, and helping you feel like you're on track and doing something that you're really passionate about and love. Now, the Saturn and Neptune, to me, I think this is where spirit is taking shape. Neptune is all about the unconditional love, unconditional creativity. It's got such, at its most positive expression, it's beautiful. It really takes you through the veils of reality, and it helps you see beyond. And of course, Saturn's a very grounding and formative energy. He's really trying to ground the spiritual and the beautiful into a solid experience. And so I just see this as a real birthing point. Now, whilst Saturn is already starting to put a bit of distance between him and Neptune, they're not really going to be that far away from each other. So they start off in a conjunction. Obviously, Saturn's moving out of that conjunction, but they're still actually in a conjunction until the 30th of May. And then they come out of a conjunction, it just goes a bit too wide. There's a bit too much of a gap between them. But then between the 14th of October and the 2nd of February next year, they're back in that conjunction again. And so how you might experience this is that you're still formulating a plan of something that you're wanting to create, wanting to get involved in, wanting to bring forward into the earth, maybe to spread deeper levels of joy and belonging, because, Neptune at its highest expression is absolutely about the urge to merge, that beautiful connection where you realize that we are all one, so there really could be a lot about oneness coming in as a theme. I'm expecting and anticipating a lot of spiritual teachers to come forward during this time as everyone is, taking charge in the sign of Aries. But then, between May and October, it feels like it's just slightly off the boil. And Saturn in Aries, he's going to start doing his own thing. Saturn in Aries can be a bit abrupt and a little bit officious and a little bit mechanistic in his defenses. So he's going to be bringing in some bite, I would say. It's not a good time, I don't think, to be doing anything too illegal. I was about to say too illegal then. It's not a good time to get caught doing something wrong, put it that way. So, no matter how beautifully you live your life, there's usually always something that you've compromised in, because we're all human, we're not automatons. And, there's if somebody wanted to find something to kind of to tell you off about or to judge you about or punish you with, most likely if they look hard enough, they could find it. And Saturn in Aries, I think, is a real punisher. And so I do think as he comes out of this conjunction with Neptune, I think it's a really good time for you to really be squeaky clean. However you're being in the world, just be aware of, just be aware of how authority could become very punishing, might be like hunting you down a little bit. I mean, Saturn in Pisces, he got lost in the waves. And he was probably working behind the scenes. But yeah, Saturn in Aries does make me feel a little bit uncomfortable. He might just want to build his own castles, and hopefully that's good. But I would just be a bit cautious about that. You just keep an eye on that. Don't take any risks. But then later on in the year, he's going to come back into that conjunction again, almost to the end of this whole astrological year. So yeah, we are still trying to build something quite beautiful. Now, Chiron, where we're healing, this is an interesting one because Chiron is he's been in Aries for a long time, and that has, I would say, brought up an energy. Definitely in the last 5 years, it's become more and more apparent. But really, since he went into Aries in 2018, it's really brought an identification with wounding and trauma. So many people talk about narcissistic parents and gaslighting, and this is really born out of the time when Chiron was in Pisces. We were slightly becoming aware to our pain, but when he came into Aries, all of a sudden our pain was painful and we could really see it. Aries doesn't beat around the bush, so the pain wasn't beating around the bush. And now Chiron's getting ready to move into Taurus, and he actually is going to move into Taurus on June the 19th, but he doesn't actually get very far. He just stays at 0 degrees Taurus, and then later on, so it's over the summer, And then on the 18th of September, he goes back into Aries. And so from start to finish, he goes from 25 degrees Aries to 0 Taurus, and then back to 28 Aries. Again, if you've got something around there, you're going to be feeling it. The great news is, as Taurus transforms into, as Chiron transforms into the sign of Taurus, and starts to exude that Taurian energy, we're going to start to see some real groundwork healing coming in. Natural health and healing is going to be emphasized, which I think is a long time coming. There'll be practical measures that we can all take and make to be healthy. This is really about healthy lifestyle, being healthy outdoors. It's no longer about pointing the finger at the aggressor or the person that caused the trauma, but it's more about how can I be practical? How can I feel good in my body? Because Taurians don't like to feel crap in their body. I mean, Taurians are actually, when everything is right in a Taurian's life, one of their favorite things to do is rest and enjoy themselves. So I think we're going to be learning a lot about restfulness. So again, if you've got something in the last few degrees of Aries, beginning of Taurus, I urge you to start playing with the energy of rest ahead of time so that you're really integrating it and then it really makes the difference. And if you're going through your Chiron return, God bless you. I've gone through mine already. Uranus then, what's going on with Uranus? So he is always showing us where we're innovating and where things are changing, and where things might be a bit rebellious and where things might feel a bit choppy and a little bit risky, but also super exciting and serendipitous. And so finally, I mean, Uranus did pop into Gemini last year on the 7th of July, and then he came out in the autumn. And now he's coming into Gemini for good, for the rest of his time in Gemini. And that's going to be great for, for people who have a very strong Taurus. He will have been shaking things up for Taurus for a long time. So you will need that Chiron rest, won't you? You'll need to put your feet up and rest up a bit. But as Uranus comes into Gemini, I think, the Gemini energy is absolutely ready for it. It just feels like there's something new, especially if you've got like an early Gemini ascendant. I'm working with quite a few at the moment, or an early degree Gemini moon or sun. You're going to be feeling this. It's like a feeling of like a static buzz or hum in the background. It's that feeling that something's about to happen. I think it's like an excitement almost. That according to how you experience that sort of butterflies in the stomach, I've noticed that I get butterflies in my stomach when I fall in love, because it's a bit scary, face it, it's a little bit scary. Or when there is something scary going on, I get butterflies in my stomach. It's actually the same feeling, irrespective of whether it's actually good or bad. But some of us associate that feeling with, oh, it's good, I'm falling in love, something great's happening. And other people think, oh my God, something terrible's happening. But what I would say is, if you've got that feeling that something is just coming in, try and get excited about it. Try and experience it as something good. What's coming is imminent change. And Uranus is going to show you how you're about to cut free from somewhere that you felt kind of bound to. He's going to be showing you how you're freeing yourself up and how you don't have to, I don't know, kind of wither, in a space that you've created. I think like the first Saturn return that we have at 29, we learn the hard way, where we've created our little castle around us, and we've created our job and relationships, and we've sort of created our life, in our early adulthood. And then all of a sudden we get that feeling, is it boredom? I don't know, but there's this feeling that we might have created a jail around us. This is a bit like that, but a lot less structured. So as Uranus comes in, all of these structures that you've been building, if they're meaningless, this is your time to let them go and to feel liberated by it and expanded by it. And I do think certain signs work better with this energy, because maybe they've let go of things before and it's felt really exhilarating. But if you're somebody who really likes stability, this could be a little bit worrying. But I urge you to see the benefit in it. Uranus really keeps things fresh, and he also keeps things very young as well. So whatever is going on is here to make you more youthful and to help you feel like you're alive again. So wherever he is moving into Gemini, that's showing where in your life you're coming back alive, coming back to life. It's great. And he's moving through the first 5 degrees, and he's not going back into Taurus. Now Pluto, he's definitely in the sign of Aquarius now, and he only ever moves a couple of degrees at a time every year. So he's literally moving from 4 to 6 degrees. He's slow, but he really packs a punch. But where he is showing up in your chart right now, if he's on, again, a nodal point, an angle, the sun or moon in particular, you'll be really feeling it. I've had Pluto over my north node, a handful of planets, my ascendant, and most notably my sun, and I really felt it. And what he shows is where we are controlling our life with such, almost with white knuckles, like we're holding on to our life for dear life. We're holding on for dear life, and we're saying it has to stay like this. Pluto, do not change this. This is my life and I'm managing it. He always kicks us right up the butt and says, oh, that's not how it is. And so wherever Pluto is showing up in your life right now, he's showing us what we're trying to hold on to, but B, where we actually need to surrender. And as we surrender to it, usually the things that you were trying to hold on to fall away, and you realize, oh my God, that actually wasn't a good representation of me. I'm actually happier without all that stuff. So it's interesting because Pluto and Uranus are really working, hand in hand at the moment with their exact, not their exact trine, but they've been in a trine for ages. They are really, really working that energy now. And there will be an exact trine actually in this astrological year. And so they're going to bring in some really huge change. So we'll be able to map that out. The final thing I'm going to be talking about then is this. So, and this is really coming in between the 19th and the 23rd of July. It's exact. Now, I just want to also put some context in. If you've got a good memory, you'll remember that the North Node is moving into Aquarius on the 26th of July. So that week, the 19th to the 26th of July, is huge, really huge. There is a huge change of energy. I just can't possibly stress how huge it is. So we will have Pluto at 4 degrees, Neptune at 4 degrees, Uranus at 4 degrees, and Jupiter at 4 degrees. Uranus and Pluto will be in an exact trine. Jupiter and Neptune will be in an exact trine. So there's 3 sextiles, an opposition, and 2 trines. This is really unheard of. Like if you look at the birth chart as a clock face, each of the planets is like a different hand on the clock, and they've all got different speeds. Like Pluto is like your hour hand, the moon is like the second hand, and the sun is like the minute hand. These are all hands that work at a different speed. And so to have all 4 of them all being, at a 4 degree angle it's really unheard of. Like I said, I've looked for similar patterns and I can find almost similar patterns, but nothing like this. So we've got a really big energy with the air and a really big energy with the fire. And fire is very much about inspiration and lighting things up. It's about your passion. It's about movement and flow and color, and life. It has vitality and heat. And then air is about communication and the markets as well, by the way. And the two of them, and so much more than that, by the way. It's about information, it's about knowledge, it's about language. So the two of them together is huge. Now, there was a similar time in 1996, not as big as this, not as good as this, but it is similar. I think I will do a video about it at some point. But in 1996, and that was the year I think I got my first email address, and I actually first went online. 1994, 1996, the internet was really coming in, but then it really started to explode from there. And we had fire and air signs working together in a similar formation, but not as perfect as this. So I think, and interestingly, 1996, 2026, it's a Saturn cycle. A Saturn cycle is 29 and a bit years. So in fact, in that time in 1996, Saturn was actually in the sign of Aries like it is now. So it's like what was started in 1996, the fire and air energy, the new internet, and mobile phones. If you think about mobile phones, I didn't even have a phone back then. I was, wanting to hold off getting a phone. I was one of the last people I know having a phone. But when you think about how mobile technology has changed, and the internet has changed, and how, AI has come in such a strong way, I just think whatever we know as the internet and mobile technology is going to be turned on its head in the next 30 years. And it really starts in this year. That's my sense. And of course, we've got the North Node going into Aquarius, which absolutely has a lot to do with frequency and connectivity. So yeah, they are some of the biggest things. But wherever this falls in your life, it doesn't mean to say you need to get online or anything like that, but it's showing you where you might be inspired. What inspiration are you going to be communicating about? What are you going to get so excited about that you're starting something that is still going to have a life in 30 years time? So there you go. They're my thoughts about this year ahead. Is huge. There was something that I did miss out, however, and I put into 10 of the 12 forecasts. I think Gemini right the way through to Pisces, and that is the 7 planets in the sign of Aries around the time of the Aries new moon. So just going to bring that up and just give you some thoughts on that. 1 second. I mean, here it is. Look at it. Oh my goodness. Yikes. So this is actually a new moon with Neptune, Mercury, Mars, and Saturn. That's 4 male planets. God of the oceans, communication, defense, and also like managing it all with a tight kind of measuring stick. Saturn's there to judge it. I mean, this is really, really tight to have 4 planets within like 5 degrees of each other, all in the sign of Aries. Very, very masculine, very argumentative. I really think that's huge. And then to have the new moon in the sign of Aries, in a conjunction with Chiron as well. Chiron's just getting ready to kind of say goodbye in the sign of Aries as well. This is Chiron's last great big hurrah, isn't it, in this sign? And he's been here since 2018. So wow. I mean, this is immense. This is like 2 stelliums in the sign of in the sign of Aries. It's huge. So this new moon, in Aries. This is a new start to maybe determine who we are and to really put ourselves out there and to really like defend our boundaries. And, you know, we might be stepping forwards from a place of pain and hurt that we've identified, because Chiron really identifies with his pain and trauma in the sign of Aries. I mean, hopefully he's learnt by now, he's been there long enough, but the sun is going to help him identify with his wounds, and then the moon is going to help him get really emotional about it. So, you know, to me, this is very similar to a very angry new moon. You know, this to me feels embittered and upset. You know, now, I mean, I wouldn't say it if it's just these three on their own, but seeing Neptune, Mercury, Mars and Saturn, it's the Mars and Saturn conjunction in particular, it also in the same sign, that's really making me think this is, you know, where we might stand up for our pain. I mean, Chiron and a new moon together in Aries doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be an intense triggering. It could actually, especially this late on in the day with Chiron's transit through Aries, it could actually be, you know, where we've learned everything about our wounds and we're having a new start with them. We're saying, do you know what? Goodbye, trauma. I'm done with it now. You know, I've really kind of got bored of myself and my traumas. And, you know, I think I'm really done with it. I can absolutely see what's happened, how it's happened, how to take responsibility. You know, it could just be a really great new start. But then, you know, when you add in these planets here in Aries, I think things could go a little bit bonkers. Personally, also, given, sorry for that nervous giggle there, but I'm sure you can see what I'm referring to here, because Neptune, Mercury, Mars and Saturn are all in a sextile with Pluto. Mars and Pluto are exactly in a sextile. That also means that Uranus is in a sextile with Neptune and Mercury. He's just out of sextile with Mars and Saturn, thank goodness. But like Uranus is also in a conjunction with Venus. I mean, this is such a dynamic chart. Yeah, so this is huge. Now, obviously, I've put this in the wrong order in my video. If I, you know, I could have put this in at the start and, you know, for some reason, I didn't think to mention it. But now really seeing it and clocking it and really considering it, I should have started with that. And of course, when you consider all the other movements of the planets, you might find that they are building on the energies that come up with this Aries new moon. So I really do see more of a connection now between this Aries new moon and then, you know, the energy that's taking place at the end of July, where we've got this sort of activation point of Jupiter at 4 degrees, Uranus at 4 degrees, Neptune at 4 degrees, really where right at the midpoint between Mercury and Mars, and then Pluto at 4 degrees. This is going to be big. So yeah, there's some huge energies. So I hope that's helpful to have a look at, you know, the year ahead, how it maps out. Like I said, I have actually sort of describe this on a sign by sign basis according to your whole sign ascendant. It's a whole sign model that I've used. I hope you find that helpful too. And if you think it could be helpful to consult with me privately, then just get in touch. My Calendly link is below. So anyway, wishing you a beautiful start to a new year. Goodness only knows where we're going to be at the end of it. But hopefully it's going to be dynamic and it's going to move us on in ways we can't quite see just yet. But I really think if you're ready for some new and fresh consciousness, I really think this year is going to deliver. So loads of love. Catch you another time and speak soon. Ciao.